Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. This is Jay Baker on the Jersey Devils Brocast. Doing a little YouTube-only episode right now. A short one, or a shorty, as we call it around here. I just wanted to cover some things in the Devils news world that have come about in the last week, specifically since our last show on Tuesday night. And as always, you can listen to our show Tuesday nights, Radio Garden State, 9 to 10 o'clock. You can listen on the Live 365 app, which is our whole new technology on Radio Garden State. Just favorite RGS on the Live 365 app and let the rest just take care of itself. But some interesting Devils news in the last few days. The Brendan Dillon comment, which I think is the most important part, and the misinterpretation maybe of Simone Nemec interview or rumor that came out of Europe, which is reminiscent of what happened last year. If you remember, before the season started, it was a similar rumor of Nemec. So many words saying that he would like to get traded if he wasn't going to be playing in the NHL in a big club throughout the season, and if he was looking at another year of bouncing up and down between the NHL and the AHL. And it was determined there was a lot lost in translation, which happens. That's happened to other players, throughout the league and in many other sports as well, where the translation from one language to another just is interpreted differently. This whole idea that he was asking for a trade seems to be a little overblown. Elliot Friedman even came out and said that wasn't necessarily the truth. And Sonny Maeda and staff have reached out to Nemec and his camp. They've had discussions, conversations, going to kind of let the dust settle and move on from there. But I think the biggest newsworthy item here was this quote by Brendan Dillon on the Donnie and Dolly show on the CHEK station in Victoria, British Columbia. Dillon, who's viewed as a leader in this locker room, that was highlighted during the season with his 1,000th game. Viewed as a guy that's well-respected, everybody listens to, had a very interesting quote on the culture of this team. I feel like we had, unfortunately, a lot of those elephants in the room. That is just the reality of, is this guy upset because this guy has more ice time? I should be playing where this guy is playing. Or I wish I was playing with that guy as my winger or defensive partner. It's hard enough to win in this league when you're healthy and when you're just trying to beat the other team, let alone having distractions going on. I don't remember, at least in Devils history, too many times where we've had a blunt quote like that in the offseason addressing some issues behind the scenes. I'm sure there have been some in the past, just I don't have any coming to mind right now. That says a lot. In a tie-in on our show on Tuesday night, I spoke a lot about the Sheldon Keefe decision on keeping him around. I'm not sure that's the best idea. I have faith in Sonny Maeda. But this quote, to me, just kind of cements the fact that I just think a culture change is really needed on this team. I love that guys are fighting for ice time. I like that guys, I want to play with this guy. I want to play with that guy. I feel good. I got chemistry with this guy. That's great. But it does go overboard. I mean, just think about the Devils in their prime, the OG Devils, in the 95 to 2003. I mean, they dismantled the A-line in large part because those guys felt that they really couldn't play with anybody else but each other. Lamoriello said that in the Devils Stanley Cup video in 2003 in the opener, talking about dismantling a legendary line and one of the most dominating lines in hockey at the time. But when you feel like you can't play well without playing with other players, that you're not able to move around a lineup, I mean, that does begin to be a problem. And yet we know Bratt and Hughes love playing together. I'd imagine Meyer and Nico like playing together. We've seen defensive partners in the past, just these guys just happen to play really well together. Mark Fay and Andy Green comes, Salvador and Zidlishki. Right now Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce play really well together. But I think after a period of time, the coach has the authority to make changes and move guys around, especially when you're losing every night, which this team was. Guys have to be able to play with one another and pull in the same direction. I think that's the difference. When you have guys that I like playing with player A and we're like, can I just keep playing with this guy? I feel good. That's different than I don't want to play with anybody else. Or it all depends on the attitude behind the scenes too, I guess. Like, you want that competitive spirit. You want guys, at times even fighting with each other. Buck Showalter said that about some of the best clubhouses he's been in baseball. Guys didn't always necessarily get along. Scotty Stevens and Claude Lemieux believe they had a fight behind closed doors in the mid-90s? I mean, you hear stories of guys just not getting along. Johnny Madden and Bobby Holik had a bit of a rocky relationship in the early 2000s. I think some of those interviews are still on YouTube. You know, it's not all roses and sunshine behind the scenes. You have a group of competitive people playing in the top league in the world, and you don't get there by just being a type B person. Typically, it's your type A, and you're going to be fighting for everything, every minute, every inch of ice, and as much recognition as possible. That attitude is kind of how some of these guys got there, right? And I understand that. But you have to work together and work in the same direction. But if there's a cultural issue behind the scenes that's bigger than one or two guys, I know you have a lot of guys, and frankly, on this team, unless your name is Nico Hischier or Jack Hughes, I don't think you have any clout to say, I am only playing with this guy. Even in Bratt's case, he didn't exactly play well for half the season this year. Love Bratt, but he didn't exactly play that great. It was a down year for him. Started turning it on later in the season, him and Jack both. I can't think of any other forwards other than Jack and Nico that I would say, all right, this guy deserves to get a little bit of rope here to play with some guys that he likes playing with, that he feels good with. Myers certainly doesn't. Mercer certainly doesn't. Glass, Gritzuk, Haminaho, Glendening. I go down the line of everyone who played on this team last year. I don't think there was anyone that had any type of rope to complain because they just weren't playing well with anyone they were playing with. And defensively, I can kind of say the same. I know Hamilton and Siegenthaler have played together a lot over the years. Pesce and Hughes have played together a lot over the years. Nemec and Dillon played a lot together this year. I don't know who is the one that's been the problem with this. That was not revealed, and I have no insider info of what's going on in that locker room, obviously. But that's concerning. And then it's concerning that you keep the coach around. Like, if that's such an issue behind the scenes, I would just think that it's not a, we need a new system. It's not a, we need a new this and new that. We need a new way of doing the power play or the penalty kill. Like, this might be a culture problem and a chemistry issue. And if the coach is allowing that to get out of hand, that's on the coach. If the captain isn't stepping in and the leadership group in that locker room, putting guys in their place, that's a problem. You know, I'm sure the final four teams this year have had issues in the locker room throughout the season. That's normal. It's called people working together. That happens. But when it gets out of hand and it becomes a distraction, some changes need to happen. And that is my concern with keeping Keefe around, is that if we want a clean slate, we want a culture change, we want to shock the system a little bit, we want to have a clean slate, whatever you want to call it. I just don't think you can do that and keep the coach around. Now, on the other hand, I don't know of many head coaching candidates that would fit what the Devils are looking for right now. I don't think Bruce Cassidy works. You know, Laviolette is an interesting one, sure, but I mean, is he a guy that's just kind of been around the block almost too many times? And there, frankly, haven't been many other guys that have been mentioned that if they feel that out of all of the options, Keefe is the best one right now, okay, fair enough. I get that. I have to have some faith in Sonny Maeda, especially since I really love the hire. But I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about that one. Now, maybe they needed a bigger culture shock and a bigger change and a turning of that page to go into next season with a clean slate. I think the comment from Brendan Dillon really brings that to light. That this team was talented enough to win, even in the middle part of the season, January and February, end of December, when they were relatively healthy again. They had the same number of injuries as everybody else at that point. They weren't dealing with missing half their forward core and their D core like they were at the end of the year in 25 or even to start the year when they were playing their best. They were good enough to win more than they lost, and they lost way more than they won. And sometimes you can have the talent, and I thought this team did, and you can have all the guys in the right positions on paper, which for the most part I thought this team did. But if you don't have the right winning attitude and if you don't have the right culture behind the scenes, it doesn't matter. Lamoriello put together many teams that were far less talented than half the league, outside of a few Hall of Famers. That helps. And the Devils had great success. I know it was a different time, but I think you could argue the Devils have as much talent as Carolina. But Carolina, they're all pulling in the same direction. I think you could argue the Devils have as much talent as Montreal. I mean, Nico Hischier versus Suzuki, Hughes versus Caulfield, Bratt versus Slafkovsky. Yeah, I'd take Hudson over Hughes right now. But it just seems overall, it's not like the Canadians are just miles and miles ahead of this team. It's an attitude. Marty St. Louis coaching the hell out of that team. Rod Brindamore's coached the hell out of the Hurricanes. Now you look in Colorado, there was a moment in McKinnon's career, I think it was McNabb made this comment years ago, about how he almost could tell you the game when it just clicked and he just had enough of losing and started holding everybody accountable on the team and holding himself to a higher standard. And now this is a team that they're down as I'm doing this recording right now, they're down 0-2 versus the Vegas Golden Knights. But Jack Eichel on that side of things with Vegas probably had the same thing when he went to Vegas. I'm sick and tired of losing. I'm sick and tired of missing the playoffs. And we're now going to play and operate in a way that we are going to win. And there's a few guys on Vegas that are that way. I mean, even Mitch Marner to an extent. Now, I know for sure with McKinnon because of the quotes, but like with Nico, is there a time? Like, it's time, man. Like, we're sick of losing. And there has to be that cultural shift behind the scenes that now guys are being held accountable. And I liked what Nico said at the end of the season. He had a quote, the gist of it was, if you don't really want to pull in the same direction here, then you can leave. And I love hearing that, but it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to hold people accountable. That's the hard part. Everybody wants a leadership role. Leadership is hard. Holding people accountable is difficult. Holding people accountable that even if you respect them or they're your friends or they're your buddies, but now we get into the professional setting, it's a little difficult because some of those guys might need a kick in the rear end. So we'll see. We'll see. But this is my concern. The Devils are not making a coaching change, and maybe Sheldon Keefe fits the system that Sonny Maeda envisions. Maybe Sheldon Keefe fits how he utilizes players in Sonny Maeda's vision. But I just think there might need to be a change behind the scenes on how things are done. It seems like this Quinn Hughes stuff and the trade rumors and all of that was kind of held over everybody's head for way too long and caused some locker room problems. We heard that throughout the season and the rumor mill as well. And that's a tough job for a head coach to keep all these guys together when you're hearing all of these trade rumors. And now today it's Dawson Mercer's getting traded, and now tomorrow it's Simone Nemec, and the next day it's a package containing 7-8 other guys. And it's hard to keep everybody moving in the same direction when you have half the roster wondering if they're going to be here in a week or two. That's tough. And that whole Quinn Hughes saga, and seemingly how Fitzgerald dropped the ball on that one. Opportunity to bring a guy in and just execute the trade and get it done so everybody could move on when you already have his two brothers here in Jersey. That is a big reason why it seems this team had some of the locker room issues that might have brought this season down. And that's not on Sheldon Keefe, but it's like, how do you bring in a whole new management staff, but your frontline manager is the same? I just don't know how you can do that and expect a different result. I think Keefe is a great coach, but I'll be on the record again saying I would make the change now, because when you go into next season, you almost have to commit to this guy now for a period of time. And if they have a slow start, it's all going to be on Sheldon Keefe, or at least that's what all the fans are going to say. And that's where that seat is going to be on fire right away if they have a slow start. But then on the flip side, with the roster construction and the players, maybe there needs to be, a bit of a bigger trade or move here to shake this thing up and bring in some different personalities. And Sonny Maeda, I don't doubt his ability to decipher analytics and make decisions based off of that at all. But will he be able to do that combination of analytics and personalities and guys that just gel together and guys that are holding each other accountable and guys that are prepared? And you need a mix of everything. You need that intensity. You also need guys that, hey, we need someone to calm this room down and settle everybody down here a little bit. You need a mix of everything. And that's going to be the challenge. It's not just we need X amount more offense next year. We need a 30-goal winger in the top six, and we could use 2 or 3 guys that hit 15, 20 goals in our bottom six. We could use another puck mover on the back end. I think it's particular players that can bring the most out of other guys around them and move the culture of this team in the right direction towards a winning culture. And the leadership group in general, from Brendan Dillon, who already is looking at himself in the mirror, to Nico, to Brat, to Jack, to across the board, they all have to look at themselves in the mirror, look at each other, hold each other accountable, hold themselves accountable, and get really sick and tired of losing and make the changes necessary to turn this team into the winner that we all think they should be, frankly. We'll have more on this Tuesday night on the Jersey Devils Brocast. As always, we'll be live on Radio Garden State from 9 to 10 o'clock. You can listen in on a Live 365 app. I am Jay Bake signing off. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, everybody, and I will see you Tuesday night on the Jersey Devils Brocast.